Welcome to another chess video, everyone. Today we're going to do something slightly different. We're going to take this in a little bit different direction, and we're going to start off with doing a little bit of myth busting here. Because Bobby Fischer has said a few famous quotations. He, of course, has said E4 best by test. That we can stand by. We'll let that one pass, even though I'm a D4 player. But we have something else that Bobby Fischer has said, that he doesn't believe in psychology, he only believes in good moves. And that sounds like a really powerful statement, and he's really trying to get to the heart of the matter, really get to the truth, and find the absolute best move in every position. And although he had to put on that persona, really take on all of the top grandmasters in the world at the time, we do see Bobby Fischer not being oblivious to psychology. So he definitely was in tune to things, and I don't think he was really playing without psychology in mind. And very similarly, Bobby Fischer also said that over the chessboard, all I believe in is good moves. So both of these go hand in hand, and we're going to show some examples here where Bobby Fischer clearly has some intuition of psychology and is not letting these things pass. Okay, so my very first example here is actually the very first game in his book. Kind of interesting here, just for a little fun. I actually have the book right here, but I'll have it on the screen, of course, so you can look at the game. And so we're not going to go over the entire game, but there is an interesting moment that I really enjoy in this book. And so the game starts off with e4. He does stay true to his best by test. We have c5, Sicilian, pretty normal. Knight f3, e6, d3, knight c6. All these are very common opening moves. Nothing too strange here. g3 intends to fianchetto, knight f6. And we play very normal opening moves here. Now, after castling from both sides, and then white continuing to develop, this next move, Bobby Fischer has a really interesting insight here, because his opponent, Sherwin, has just now played rook to b8. And with rook b8, it's an interesting idea, but of course Bobby Fischer's quotation I really like here. Fischer says that Sherwin slid the rook here with his pinky, as if to emphasize the cunning of this mysterious move. And I think that was just such a great quotation because really, it just captures the fact that he is not oblivious to psychology here. Like, he knows that both of these players, as well as all the other top players, there is some mind games being involved here. And if he didn't really believe in psychology, then he wouldn't really comment something like that literally in the first game of his book, My 60 Memorable Games. Now, with that being said, you could make an argument and say, well, that was actually his opponent that was playing the mind games, and Fischer was merely noticing it. But here, we'll go to another example, and we'll show that, no, actually, Bobby Fischer does have a few psychological elements to his advantage as well. Of course, e4 best by test. What do you think Bobby Fischer would start with? And any answer other than e4 will be a surprise. But here, not only is it a different move, but it's also a very uncommon move. This was from 1964. It was part of a simultaneous exhibition that he held. And he played over 50 games in that event, and he won all of the games except for one game. And this was one of the games that he won, so this is not the one he lost, but he actually played b4 several times in that same event. So you could also make an argument and say, oh, they were lower rated players, but I don't think he was just playing silly stuff to play silly. I think he was very well aware that other top players in the world would see what openings he's playing, and maybe he's not giving away his repertoire of e4 of what he's studying. But he's also introducing the idea that maybe I'll play a move like b4 against them, and now they have to start preparing against these ideas as well. Now I'll show a few moves just so you feel a little more completeness with the opening. So the opponent here played e5, Fischer fianchettos, and then they actually played pawn to f6, trying to hold on to this pawn. And of course they could not develop with the knight here to defend the pawn, because then pawn to b5 would kick away the knight that was the defender of this pawn. So they played pawn to f6. Bobby Fischer now takes the center with pawn to e4, and then they give up the pawn. But Fischer plays this as a sacrifice, and so he continues to develop. I mean, this just looks like a game from Paul Morphy or someone from the Romantic era of chess, where they sacrifice a little material, and then they just keep developing. Already he's taking control of all of the weak squares on this diagonal here, which black is weakened because they played the pawn move f6. And then after black develops, of course, white continues with the attack. Queen to h5, keeping up the pressure. They block with the knight, and again, f4 trying to open lines of attack and keep the attacking pressure up. They capture, and then we don't even do anything about it, we just continue developing. And so now 2 pawns down, keep sacrificing, but you keep developing, and eventually the attack wins. And this was a game that, Fischer went on to win in quite interesting fashion. But let me know if you want to see more insight in any of the games I showed today, and go a little slower move by move, maybe if you think that'd be an interesting thing for a different video, make sure to mention the YouTube comments and I'll consider making a video on it. But now we have to go to the next example, because it's not just pawn to b4 that he plays in a simultaneous exhibition, because here we have none other than Boris Spassky, a very top player. So this is not a lower player from some kind of simul. And not only that, but this is a World Championship match. This is 1972, the very famous World Championship match between Fischer and Spassky. And here, what does Fischer do? Well, e4, of course, very solid idea. That's what he always is known for. And instead of that, he actually plays a d4 opening, starting with a different move order. He plays pawn to c4, and he's going to transpose it in the queen's gambit, so basically playing the d4 opening, which, of course, has to be connected to psychology here. Because if you really believe in e4 best by test, and that is your main opening repertoire, then you want to play objectively the best move that you wholeheartedly believe, you'll play e4. But here, we don't have this. He plays c4, and then we'll see he actually plays into a queen's gambit. So here, this is just transposition to a d4 opening. And from this, what would you do with Spassky? Because Fischer has never really played this before, so you have no idea what he could come up with. Does he have some kind of prep, prepared for this? Is he a fan of something that he just learned? Is there some cool novelty that he discovered? You have no idea. And so the fact that he's doing this, it's already a little bit of a mind game thing. And so clearly he understood psychology and used it to his benefit. And I don't blame him. Everyone should. But you cannot say that he's only going best by test. Now continuing here, knight to c3, very normal. We just have developing moves. e3. And then here, Spassky, which I think I have a little interesting insight here with this. He plays pawn to c5. And I think the idea, my speculation, is that Spassky was a little, taken in nerves because of what Fischer has played, and really has no idea how to handle the Queen's Gambit that Fischer is playing. He's played against the Queen's Gambit many times, but this is Bobby Fischer, and what does he have prepared? So I think Spassky would have been very happy to escape this game with the draw, and so he plays pawn to c5, I think with the idea of trying to equalize, because this formation here of pawns, this is known as a cross lever. And if you want to know about a cross lever and the other types of pawn levers that are pretty important, you can check out this YouTube video I made earlier on the different types of pawn levers, including this one. Now, as I mentioned in that video, the cross lever, it tends to be very short-lived, but I think here, because it was done in exactly the center of the board, it was Spassky's attempt to try and get a draw. Now, there is that short-lived tension. We do have some trades very quickly, and the center very quickly dissipates, and then the game continues from here. Now, in the end, Spassky did end up holding the draw, and so I think that was a success to him, seeing an opening by an opponent that really has never played a d4 opening before. So here we are, same World Championship match in Reykjavik, Iceland, and Bobby Fischer, of course, has played that opening before, so now what is he going to play? He's going to go back to the e4, has to continue the standard stuff, right? Gotta play what you believe in, the absolute best move, and instead he plays c4. He's going to do the exact same thing here, where he will transpose again to a d4 opening. So, again, the psychology here, he has to believe in. And, I think that's a really good thing, because you have to use every bit to your advantage. He doesn't, have this huge dominant streak that he had and make it to a World Championship match if he was so predictable. So there's always this little back and forth of preparation. You cannot afford to be predictable, because everyone studies your games, especially with computers nowadays. Now, to show for entertainment purposes what Fischer played, because he rarely plays this opening. Now, Spassky plays bishop e7, which is a bit passive, but, maybe that's evidence to show that Fischer's mind games are working. Now, he continues developing. We play very standard Queen's Gambit stuff, and all of this is very common theory. And so from here, the game went on, and very similar to the first one, we ended up with the draw. So maybe that's more reason that Fischer likes to think that e4 is indeed best by test. He had better results with e4 than other openings. But it just goes to show that clearly he did have some knowledge of psychology, or he wouldn't have been playing this. He would have been playing these e4 stuff constantly all the time. But that is simply not the case. So he does believe in psychology. So Bobby Fischer, I think, very well knew of his psychological edge and tried to use it to the best of his ability to keep things going. If you want to check out more videos where I look at more chess things, then make sure to stop by for those, and I'll see you in one of those next videos.